Welcome to First Unitarian Toronto Online, where we meet in a new way to seek, connect, and serve. We welcome you, whether you're a longtime member of this community or whether you're joining us for the first time today. We begin by recognizing that the City of Toronto is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Anishinaabeg and Haudenosaunee allied nations to peaceably care for and share the lands around the Great Lakes. Knowing that we come to online community from a wide variety of homes and locations, we are all encouraged to learn as much as we can about the Indigenous history of the lands on which we dwell, as we continue in the urgent and ongoing work of reconciliation. I'm Reverend Lynn Harrison. This morning I'm joined by our Vice President of our Board of Trustees, Moara Barrett, as well as our former Vice President, Terry Marks, and Gabrielle Burns, and Julith Dawson, who will all be our guest speakers this morning on the subject of Black History Month. Gabrielle is also one of our resident musicians, and she'll be offering music for us today. Also, at the end of today's service, we'll have a special message from Calvin Drake, as today is the Canadian Unitarian Council's Sharing Our Faith Sunday, supporting the wider movement of Unitarian Universalism across Canada. A special nationwide worship service will take place today at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and I hope many of you will be able to attend. Finally, I'm grateful as always to be working with our Director of Congregational Music, Dallas Bergen, our pianist, Adam Sakiyama, and AV technician, Matt Rideout. We're so grateful to be with you all this morning. Now, as we begin our service, you are invited to light a chalice or candle if you have one nearby, and join me in our chalice lighting words. As we light our chalice, I believe the words will appear. As we light our chalice, may its flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth.
Our call to worship this morning is from author and cultural critic Bell Hooks from her book, All About Love. Enjoying the benefits of living and loving in community empowers us to meet strangers without fear and extend to them the gift of openness and recognition. Just by speaking to a stranger, acknowledging their presence on the planet, we make a connection. Every day, we all have an opportunity to practice the lessons learned in community. We can begin by sharing a smile, a warm greeting, a bit of conversation, by doing a kind deed, or by acknowledging kindness offered to us. From our many and varied paths, we arrive here as individuals to build up within and beyond walls a community of commitment and hope. To express the highest aspirations of our congregation, let us now join in the words of our covenant. Love is our doctrine. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning. I'm happy to share with you news of the life of the congregation. You're invited to stay following the service for small group discussions. And newcomers among us, this being the first Sunday of the month, we have a special newcomer information session that you are welcome to join. We'll post the Zoom link for that at the end of the service. It can also be found on the website. Also happening today is the Canadian Unitarian Council's National Sharing Our Faith Sunday with service at 1 p.m. And we'll post that Zoom link at the end of the service as well. You can watch it on YouTube too. And you'll also hear from Calvin Drake later in the service. Later on this month, ask you to save the date for our Winter Coffee House, Friday, February 26th, where you will hear members of our congregation and wider community sharing stories, songs, and readings and artwork. There is still space for performers and visual artists. You can see First Light to contribute your works to a special video for that evening. Again, details are in First Light. A couple of new social groups coming up. We have a wine tasting group beginning later in this month, as well as a new dinner and a movie series. I look forward to sharing those with you on Monday evenings, and you can find those details in First Light as well. Other weekday drop-in ongoing congregational activities are Monday meditation group with Moara and sessions with Reverend Lynn Harrison, Tuesday mornings awakenings, and Thursday evening reflections. Those will be hosted by Angela Clausen, our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, and myself over the coming weeks, as Lynn will be on much deserved sabbatical time. We look forward to your return, Lynn. Team Generosity is thrilled to announce that we are welcoming new volunteers into the whirlwind excitement of our congregation's annual pledge campaign. If you have fundraising ideas and want to actively support our shared mission to seek, connect, and serve, please reach out to Catherine Lake or Mo McMahon. See First Light for more information. And deep gratitude to you all for your volunteer time and energy and for your financial contributions that sustain the life of this congregation. You can make a one-time or ongoing contribution via the website at any time. Also on matters of giving, tax receipts for 2020 were sent on January 29th by email. If you have not provided an email to the congregation, those will be sent by paper mail. So you can check for those or expect them to be coming soon. I invite you to subscribe to First Light via the website for all of this info and more details on congregational activities and Canadian Unitarian Council events and more.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
It appears we have lost Lynn. I'll just give one moment to see if she reconnects in a moment. Otherwise, I will carry on with our meditation sequence. I invite you to find comfort in your place and in your being in this moment as we enter our meditation sequence with words and silence. And Maura Barrett will offer our meditation words.
This meditation reading is from Alice Walker's book, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. My mother made all the clothes we wore, even my brother's overalls. She made all the towels and sheets we used. She spent the summers canning vegetables and fruits. She spent the winter evenings making quilts, enough to cover all our beds. Her day began before sunup and did not end until late at night. There was never a moment for her to sit down, undisturbed, to unravel her own private thoughts. Never a time free from interruption by work or the noisy inquiries of her many children. And yet, it is to my mother and all our mothers who were not famous that I went in search of the secret of what has fed that muzzled and often mutilated but vibrant creative spirit that the Black woman has inherited. And that pops up in wild and unlikely places to this day. For example, in the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., there hangs a quilt unlike any other in the world. In fanciful, inspired, and yet simple and identifiable figures, it portrays the story of the crucifixion. It is considered rare, beyond price, though it follows no known pattern of quilt making. And though it is made of bits and pieces of worthless rags, it is obviously the work of a person of powerful, imaginative, and deep spiritual feeling. Below this quilt, I saw a note that says it was made by, quote, an anonymous Black woman in Alabama 100 years ago. If we could locate this anonymous Black woman from Alabama, she would turn out to be one of our grandmothers, an artist who left her mark in the only materials she could afford, and in the only medium her position in society allowed her to use.
In this community, we endeavor in mutual support and care to one another, sharing in grief and sorrow, celebration and joy. When we share with one another, we strengthen the bonds between us in a great web of compassion and love. Let us hold one another in the spirit of love and empathy for those in this community and for the wider world. May our hearts move towards deeper compassion understanding, and care for all who struggle in these times. We hold in loving care those who find challenge at this time, those struggling with their mental health, with anxiety, loneliness, or despair, those overcome with worry about their health or the well-being of loved ones. We hold in our hearts those who struggle to meet their basic needs, fighting for daily survival in our communities and beyond. We hold the earth and its many connections in our hearts today, longing for environmental justice, recognizing the interconnected web of life. We give thanks and gratitude for all frontline workers, those who are caring for those in this pandemic and beyond. And we hope for a quick and just distribution of vaccines. As we now honor the sorrows that we all share, let us affirm anew that what touches the life of one of us affects us all. You're invited to name your sorrows by typing them in the chat now.
And I thank Dallas very much for filling in as my internet went down briefly. Grateful to be with you all in this unusual time of technology and challenge. Harold Wright is sharing sadness at the loss of Ron Torres of New Jersey, a brother-in-law of his niece who was released from life support yesterday. Our thoughts are with you, Harold, in missing him. Heather Wright also is grieving her beloved cat, Dinah, but also sending love to her friend, Adrian, whose 99-year-old mother is seriously ill with COVID-19, holding her in her heart. Thank you, Heather. Inviting other shared sorrows that you would like to lift up this morning. Carol Ann Armstrong is feeling profoundly sad at the loss of her dear, sweet younger brother, who lost his battle with cancer last Thursday. He died as he lived, filled with grace and love. Our thoughts are with you, Carol Ann, as you mourn your brother. Beth is thinking right now of her son and daughter-in-law, Sarah and Ian, who are at the emergency vet with geriatric dog Riley. Sarah just lost her mother a couple of weeks ago. Our thoughts are with you at this very sad time. Amanda is sharing concern for her mother who fell while walking from the living room to the kitchen and bruised her ribs. We're thinking of you and her. Linda Heron is sad for the state of environmental justice in Ontario. Thank you, Linda. Ruth Tate is thinking of struggling seniors in institutional care this morning. India Taylor is thinking of the northern Syrians under horrific attack by IS again. This morning as well, our hearts go out to the staff and residents of New Visions Toronto, following the sudden and tragic loss of staff member Imabet Foster, who had worked there for 20 years. Our condolences go out to her family and everyone at New Visions in this very sad time. Robin Wren and Harry write, Robin writes, thinking of my colleague who just found out his younger brother has been diagnosed with metastatic pancreatic cancer at just 40 years old. It is so much harder when you know what this means, when you have given this news yourself, and then you find your family member at its mercy. We are so sorry. Jean Geary is remembering Griffin, the son of a dear friend and neighbor whose long struggle with addiction and mental illness ended with a fentanyl overdose. So very sorry to hear that, Jean. May these and other sorrows that we hold in the silence of our hearts be met with love, care, and compassion today and in the days to come. As well, thinking of the inequitable distribution and use of the vaccine in Ontario, leaving long-term care residents victims. Thank you, Judy. In addition to the many sorrows that we carry, we also have joys to lift up today. Milestones of all kinds, celebrations, large and small, so many blessings in our lives that we are grateful for. Today we are grateful for the light that is gradually extending now into the early evening, offering many of us a little bit more energy during this challenging time. We're grateful to share the service with so many people this morning. Looking forward to everything that is shared at this morning's service. Grateful for good books, for winter walks, for conversations with friends, with moments of beauty in all forms. And I invite you now to lift up any joys that you are bringing with you today, that they may be shared among us. Ruth Tate is grateful for Toronto First, for First Unitarian, and with the energy of community, as are we all. Robin and Ren and Harry write that they are grateful, very grateful for. We've had a lot of joys all shared at once, so I'm catching up. Grateful for the online access to Unitarian Universalism. This is Melissa's joy. Grateful for the online access to Unitarian Universalism as we prepare a move to Moncton, New Brunswick. All the best wishes for that move, Melissa. And Robin, Ren, and Harry are grateful for sundogs and Sunday morning snuggles in bed. What a wonderful joy to share. Owen and Meg are thankful to the organizing committee and participants who made yesterday's first virtual midwinter retreat such a success. Thank you so much for sharing that. Rilla Clark writes, with gratitude and appreciation for the gifts given to us by Christopher Plummer. So many delightful memories of his poignant and remarkable performances at Stratford, and recently his mischievous contribution to the film Knives Out. True, I enjoyed that film as well. Sue Burlove says, thank you to the organizers of the wonderful day yesterday, Midwinter Retreat Online. Thank you. Maya Ferguson Klanowski, 4 years with Quinn. Congratulations. David is celebrating our friends Heather and Jeff, who will shortly become foster parents. Congratulations. Beth Vanderweerd is grateful for First's continued commitment to refugee sponsorship and to all the volunteers who support that work. Beth is thankful for the tragic supplement in today's Star. Crisis of Care brings together the pages of articles on the crisis in long-term care, hoping that it provides a push to those who can help. Thank you for bringing our attention to that. Helen Iacovino is grateful for the midwinter retreat yesterday, the first one online, and a rousing success. Liz writes, the joy of putting down first tracks on the Toboggan Hill early this morning. Beautiful snowfall and sun on the snow today. Marilee Brand writes, we are so proud of our grandson Blake, who made the Dean's List in his first semester at the University of Guelph. Congratulations. Judith Magny is grateful for the fabulous midwinter retreat yesterday. Katie Babcock is grateful for a beautiful sunny walk this morning. Amanda is grateful for the simple and beautiful celebration of her daughter's 26th birthday and her happiness. Thank you for sharing that with us, Amanda. Marilyn D'Onofrio is grateful for her older daughter's birthday Zoom over 3 different time zones yesterday. Many birthdays shared recently. Thank you. Winnie McDonough is grateful to be able to see and talk to family members without needing to get on an airplane. Indeed, we are grateful for that. Heather Wright is grateful for the music that Adam, Dallas, Gabby, Lynn, and all the other resident musicians offer. Thank you, Heather, and thank you to all of our wonderful musicians. India Taylor is thankful for the comfort and company of furry friends. Indeed, a great joy and comfort during these times. Carol Ann Armstrong is grateful that she could be with her younger brother in the last days of his life. I'm thinking of you, Carol, today. Carol Ann. Wendy Peebles and Peter Bryden are grateful for the birds in their backyard. Gilbert says, thank goodness for all the scientists that keep inventing vaccines. And Ingrid Phillip, grateful for the many gifts of Black culture, which we are celebrating today. Thank you. As we hold all of these joys and sorrows in our hearts, knowing that others will arise later today and in the days to come, may we pause now for a moment of reflective prayer. Spirit of life, the divine known to us by many names, yet beyond all naming, guide us in the work each of us is called to do in the ongoing work of justice. May we listen with open hearts and share our stories with honesty. May our histories be a light to us as we open ourselves to transformation, both as individuals and as a community of faith. Whatever our personal path or the challenges we may face, may we know that we are not alone in our journeys, that our lives are woven together in the depths of sorrow and the heights of joy, in the fabric of life that is both enduring and ever-changing. Amen. Now please welcome Terry Marks, followed by Juleth Dawson, Gabrielle Burns, and Moara Barrett.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to share a reflection on what Black History Month means to me. Did you know that Black History Month was first introduced into Parliament in December 1995? It was introduced by Jean Augustine, the first Black woman elected as a member of Parliament. I didn't know that. Award-winning author Lawrence Hill, who wrote the Book of Negroes, ponders why so many of us Canadians have read our American neighbors' novels, such as Uncle Tom's Cabin, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Roots, but haven't read our Black authors such as Dionne Brand or Afua Cooper and George Eliot Clark. And no, I haven't read these Canadian authors myself. As I reflect, it turns out that I don't know a lot about Black history and culture. Perhaps when I was growing up, all my family wanted to do was to assimilate into Canadian society. I was told to speak properly, not to use patois, and to dress properly, which I guess meant to speak and look like a regular Canadian. Sure, my aunts and mother would gather around at Christmas time or other holidays and share stories of home. And I remember a black and green felt map of Guyana hanging on the wall. But my Caribbean culture was never really passed down. And in school, it was no different. I did not have one lesson in my pre-university education on Black history, not one lesson. It strikes me, for this reason, it strikes me as odd to have 1 month, just 1 month out of the whole year to share and highlight Black history. And for that matter, it makes no sense to have only 1 month to celebrate and highlight our First Nations history and achievements. But that's another reflection. Sure, it's fine to celebrate our culture, to eat traditional foods and wear traditional clothing, but celebrating for 1 month doesn't make any sense to me anymore. When Black people are dying at the hands of police who have been sworn to serve and protect. Aren't we past the point of Black History Month? Aren't the tragic deaths of Black men and women of the past years proof enough that we have to do something more? Really? Shouldn't we be integrating more fully anti-racist education into our schools, communities, and dare I say, congregations, so that we need no longer to set aside a month for Black history? Yes, indeed. I think it's way past the point. I think we need to let go of just celebrating and highlighting during certain months and let the real work of anti-racism begin.
It is an honor to share my thoughts with you on Black History Month, when we recognize and celebrate the achievements of Black people everywhere. Everyone generally loves a celebration, so do I. But after much reflection, I'm saying no thank you to Black History Month. Not unless we're also going to celebrate White History Month. Of course, I can already see the thought bubble above your head saying, what? White History Month? My response is, exactly. There is no need, you say. But why? Is it because every month is in effect White History Month? Whereas only February, the shortest and coldest month of the year, is Black History Month. Right now, we are in the midst of a global pandemic caused by COVID-19. We're all working together to eliminate it. There's another pandemic raging as well, the pandemic of systemic racism. And it will take a similarly concerted effort by us all to end it. Many of you hearing me today, and I can see that, are white and have benefited from white privilege because you belong to the group who, through no fault of your own, is able to move seamlessly through society very easily. You can navigate, you can go wherever you want, whenever you want, without second guessing yourself. You never have to think or wonder, I wonder if I didn't get that job or housing because of my color, even though I'm very qualified. Well, Black people do that all the time, and it's very dispiriting. You'll often hear people say, Black people just have to work harder and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And you would be right if there weren't so many systemic hurdles in their pathway. In my youth, I was a sprinter. I loved track and field. If I challenged you to a 100-meter race, I'd probably beat you. But if I gave you a 90-meter head start, no matter how fast I am, and I could run, I would never catch you, even if you walked backwards to the finish line. Systemic racism is like that. White people have had a 400-year head start in North America since Blacks were brought here and enslaved. Growing up in Jamaica, I saw Black people in positions of power and influence, and I even thought one day I'd be Prime Minister. Then I smartened up and went into science. Many of you will say, you're not a racist. You don't see color. And I know what you mean. That is true. I believe you. But I would like you to be anti-racist. See my color as Black and actively work together to end systemic racism. Let's play a game. I'll say a few names and let's see how many you're familiar with. Oscar Peterson, John Glenn, Katherine Johnson, Elijah McCoy, the Three Musketeers. Are you familiar with those? Okay, so Oscar Peterson was easy. You know, he's a Black jazz pianist. His song, Hymn to Freedom, is still my favorite. So that was a giveaway. John Glenn, first white American astronaut to orbit the Earth. You knew that as well. Katherine Johnson, not many people might know, but she was one of the Black mathematicians who did the calculation to ensure that John Glenn got into space safely and came back. I didn't know that until I saw that film. Elijah McCoy, a Black man born in Canada and was the inventor of the automatic lubricator that made steam engine trains run efficiently. To this day, we still use the expression, the real McCoy, to say that the best of anything is the real thing, real McCoy. Now, the Three Musketeers, I will say, okay, it's not a name, but it's a book. And do you know that book was written by a Black man? Yep, Alexandre Dumas. He was from France. He wrote that book in 1844, and it was a world bestseller, but not many people knew that he was a Black person. In the Southern United States, they would never have liked that book. Okay, how about Tom Brady? Patrick Mahomes. Anyone knows those names? Okay, this is a trick question. They're the two quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl today. It should be a fun game. The last story I want to mention briefly involves soccer. I love soccer. I watch soccer. I breathe soccer. I even play soccer. Well, not very well, but I play. Now, in 1998, the World Cup of Soccer was held in France, and wonder of wonders, Jamaica, my small island, qualified to participate. All of a sudden, everyone in Jamaica, the man on the street, wanted to speak French. Now, our second language in Jamaica is Spanish because we're surrounded by Spanish-speaking countries. And so everyone was, bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, Francois, bonjour, madame, s'il vous plaît. It was such a big joke. Like, they never had a hope of going to France. But because they were invested in a team that was going to play in France, everybody wanted to be French-speaking. Now, you'll wonder why I say this. The point is, we want for our Black youth to see people like them in positions of power and influence, to give them a goal to aim for so that one day they'll say, I can probably do that. So I think Black history, like all other people's history, should be an integral part of the school's curriculum and taught to all children. It should just be history, period. How often we hear the word, the first Black this, the first Black that, the first Black leader for federal party, Miss Paul, the first Black vice president, Kamala Harris. And I applaud those achievements because it's nice to have that. But when was the last time you heard the first white this or the first white that? The first white CEO? Why? Is it because whites have stopped achieving? I don't think so. But that's the norm. We expect that whites will be at the top of the heap. Finally, I'll say, I have a dream. Okay, don't worry. I'm not going to do Dr. King's speech. I wouldn't do it justice. Plus, it's too long to memorize. But my dream is that in the not too distant future, my as yet unborn grand and great grandchildren, we see a time when Black History Month is obsolete. It'll be like the rotary telephone. What is that? They'll say. They'll probably say, our ancestors must have really loved their colors. They had a whole month for Black history. Black? I wonder if they also had Purple History Month, Turquoise History Month, Blue History Month. I hope that day comes soon. Thank you.
Black History Month. My relationship with my Blackness has been in flux since as long as I can remember. I grew up in downtown Toronto, born into a big, boisterous family. My mother, Juleth, hails from Jamaica, and my father from Quebec. Growing up in a mixed household among such diverse friends, I never really gave much thought to the color of my skin. If asked to describe myself, I'd probably list off what I'll call my identity highlights. I speak French, I sing in choir, I play soccer, I have 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and 2 dogs. I'm not sure exactly when this shifted, but as I entered my teenhood, I started to look more closely at who I was and where I fit into the world. And I realized I'd have to start including more details in my identity highlights, mainly because I kept getting this question, what are you? This question followed me around like a duckling imprinting on his mama duck. Such an odd question because the answer is obvious. I'm human, what are you? No, they'd chuckle. Clearly I misunderstood. Where are you from? Oh, I'd start. I'm Canadian, born in Toronto. No, they'd stop me, still unsatisfied. What's your background? Ah, I think there it is. You're not asking me about myself. No, you want me to explain why I look the way I do, why my skin is brown, why my hair curls and coils, and why my eyes are light and hazel. In other words, you want to know where I fit. And so I would oblige and say my mom is Jamaican, my dad is Quebecois. Ah, they'd say, finally satisfied, finally understanding. And just like that, I found myself being sorted. I'd always been both Black and white, but suddenly there was a need to categorize my attributes as either Black or white. My hair, definitely Black. My eyes, white. My nose, white. My lips, Black. What became clear was that there was a negative and positive connotation to both sides. It was always subtle, but it was always there. And it didn't stop at my physical appearance. The way I spoke was too white, not good. The way I danced was Black, but that was a good thing. My hair was Black, but not too Black, because I'd spend entire days straightening my hair, burning my curls into submission, even convincing my mom to let me perm my hair with harsh chemicals. My peers would joke that I was an Oreo, Black on the outside, white on the inside, or that I was whitewashed. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. And I would laugh along, sometimes even play up the joke, not wanting to draw attention to the fact that it bothered me. I developed skills to avoid these titles, like code switching. For those who don't know, code switching is when you customize your style of speech to the audience being addressed. In my case, that meant playing up my Blackness in certain circles and playing up my whiteness in others. Either way, it always felt like acting. I was walking a mixed race tightrope, and it was exhausting. It wasn't until I went away to school that I started to rethink everything. Up until that point, I had let my peers dictate how I felt about my Blackness. So I began to re-examine my relationship with both my white and Black heritage. I stopped straightening my hair and let my natural curls take up as much space as they wanted. And oh my, can these curls take up space. I began to re-examine my relationship with myself, and I realized that I'm already both Black and white. I know that I still have much to learn and much to unlearn when it comes to the complexities of identity. But what I know now is I don't need to act or look a certain way to claim my Black title or to prove my worth.
Thanks everyone for allowing me to share my thoughts about Black History Month. What does Black History Month mean to me? Well, it's complicated. A few years ago, I visited Chicago with my sisters. We spent a lot of time touring around the city, taking in the sights and visiting museums and art galleries. And what struck me most about the city was the presence of Blackness, not just socially, but civically, historically. From the artists on display in the museums, to the statues in Millennium Park, to the bust of the founder of Chicago, a Haitian-born pioneer named Jean-Baptiste Point de Sable, in Chicago's Magnificent Mile. This aspect of Chicago was in stark contrast to Toronto, a city where Black history was largely absent or difficult to find. In 2016, the year after we visited Chicago, the Royal Ontario Museum apologized for an exhibit that had opened there in 1989 called Into the Heart of Africa, which deliberately depicted Africa and Africans from the perspectives of colonialists, missionaries, and invaders. At the time, when my sisters and I had gone to see that exhibit, rather than being horrified by the frankly racist imagery, we had basically shrugged and said, biggers. You see, because as far as we had known up to that point in 1989, the mainstream had rarely been inclined to depict Black history from the perspective of Black people. Nowadays, well, when I visited the Dutch Golden Age exhibit at the Royal Ontario Museum in 2019, there was an introduction at the entrance noting that the Golden Age had been brought about by trade. Then there was a list of the things that they traded, ending with, quote, and other commodities. And I stood looking at that word, commodities, knowing full well that those commodities were my ancestors. So at least some mainstream institutions are not necessarily sure what to do with Black history. And I don't even really know what the mainstream is exactly. I just know that Black history is not generally part of it. I've been an educator for going on 30 years now. And when I sit on committees planning Black History Month events in whichever school or faculty or organization, I always end up wrestling with the question, what is Black History Month for? What is the work that we want it to do? Every year, we highlight a list of historical Black figures and their accomplishments. Also, there might be a spotlight on Black experiences in Canada since the 17th century. Often the Royal Ontario Museum and Art Gallery of Ontario and other cultural institutions create spaces for Black artists to show their work. All of that is supplemented with public lectures, panel discussions, lessons in schools, and tweets and commemorative videos by politicians. And once in a while, as was the case in 2018, Black History Month might be chosen as the month to release a blockbuster movie about, for example, a Black superhero in a mythical, never colonized African state called Wakanda. I'm not going to diss any of those things. For me, though, Black history is in my bones. It's family history interwoven with the social histories of various nations in Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and North America. I don't need to have Black History Month in order to either know about Black history or celebrate it. But it's nice to see Blackness out there and present in a way that I had seen in Chicago as part of the local history, embedded in its fine arts and civic memorials. Because this annual celebration exists, I expect the institutions with and within which I interact to acknowledge it, and I expect the individuals within them who I call friends to celebrate with me. But Black History Month can never really do the work that needs to be done to integrate Black history 12 months a year into what the mainstream sees as its history. And there are reasons why we as a society need this integration that would require way more time to describe than I have here. You know, on the one hand, I wish Black History Month wasn't necessary. But on the other, I still enjoy it because the celebration is nice. It's an opportunity to share with friends, and I expect it will continue to adapt to whatever social milieu or historical moment in which it is celebrated. So, what does Black History Month mean to me? On the one hand, it means celebrating Black achievements and historical presence while correcting and filling in gaps in how the mainstream tells its history. But on the other, it's a time that highlights the absence of Black history in the other 11 months of the year. So, yeah, it's complicated.
I woke up to the morning sky first. Baby blue, just like we rehearsed. When I get up off this ground, shake the leaves back down to the brown, 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 till I'm clean. When I walk, I'll be shaded by the trees, by a meadow of green, for about a mile. I'm headed to town, town, town in a style, with all my favorite colors, all my favorite colors. My sisters and my brothers, see them like no other, all my favorite colors. A good day to be, a good day for me, a good day to see my favorite colors. My sisters and my brothers, I see them like no other, all my favorite colors. Take me to the other side, where the little bluebirds fly. Gray clouds and white walls or blue skies, we gon' fly, feel alright. The least I can say is we renegade, hold the parade, we renegade in the morning, with all my favorite colors, all my favorite colors. My sisters and my brothers, see them like no other, all my favorite colors. A good day to be, a good day for me, a good day to see my favorite colors. My sisters and my brothers, I see them like no other, all my favorite colors. sisters and my brothers, I see them like no other. All my favorite colors.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for that. That was awesome. And deep gratitude to all of our speakers this morning. And now, because today is Sharing Our Faith Sunday, we have a special presentation from Calvin Drake to bring attention to the Canadian Unitarian Council and the broader Unitarian movement across Canada. Welcome, Calvin.
Thank you, Dallas. Good morning, everyone. As you know, every UU congregation is independent. There's no national head of the UU Church, nor is there a Unitarian Universalist Pope, although I think my vote would be split between Lynn and Sean, or maybe they can be co-pontiffs. But you know, in 1961, all the UU congregations across Canada chose to come together to create a body, the Canadian Unitarian Council, to collectively affirm and promote our shared values and principles. Now, February is designated CUC month, a chance to deepen our connections within the wider UU community and come away with a better understanding of what our Canadian Unitarian Council does, why it's necessary, especially in these uncertain times. As you heard earlier, after this service today at 1 p.m., we'll have a chance to see and hear our fellow UUs from across the country at our Sharing Our Faith national service. We'll be asked to explore how we can take risks and widen our circle to become the transformational faith we aspire to be. The Zoom and YouTube links are in first slide. Now, sharing our faith means putting our faith into action. In addition to the help that we get from the CUC National Office, we also need to help each other. And that's where the Sharing Our Faith Fund comes in. The Sharing Our Faith Fund awards grants to congregations to enhance ministry, congregational vitality, and outreach. Since 2001, the program has distributed over $180,000. Now, that's a significant amount of money, and it's done some pretty significant things. New and smaller congregations have been able to get some much needed part-time professional ministry to implement religious education and children's programs. More established congregations have been able to increase their use of professional ministry and to expand music programs and improve accessibility for people with physical challenges. Now, of course, outreach is the cornerstone of every congregation's mission. Grants have helped congregations promote themselves with everything from new signage and flashy wayside pulpits to enhancing their presence on the web or in social media. The Sharing Our Faith program has helped larger congregations, such as ours, to mature and share our knowledge and experience. Indeed, in the last 10 years or so, we at Toronto First have received 2 grants that have allowed us to expand our own ministerial capability and to serve as a teaching congregation for ministerial interns. This morning, we and all UUs across Canada have an opportunity to make a financial contribution to that Sharing Our Faith Fund. You can give through online banking or through the Canada Helps website. Details will appear on your screen in a few minutes and also in the chat. It can also be found in first slide.
We are Canadian Unitarians and Universalists.
We are people of many paths. We're brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers.
We are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, and spirituality.
We are aligned in our desire to make a difference for the good. We have radical roots and a history as self-motivated spiritual people.
We think for ourselves and we recognize that life experience is the strongest influence in our beliefs.
We live our values in our work for social justice.
Unitarian Universalists have advocated for affordable housing, choice in dying, and world peace.
We sponsor refugees and seek truth, healing, and reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples.
We work for racial justice, criminal justice, and climate justice.
And for more than 40 years, we have been at the forefront of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer inclusion.
We are called to love and justice through our interdependence on each other and on the world around us.
We aspire to be deeply connected, radically inclusive, actively engaged, theologically alive, and spiritually grounded.
Soyez les bienvenus, comme vous êtes, avec vos convictions et vos doutes, vos craintes et vos espoirs.
We seek to welcome you, your whole self, with all your truths and your doubts, your worries and your hopes. Find out what it means to live your deepest values out loud.
Join us on this extraordinary adventure of faith.
Joignez-vous à cette extraordinaire aventure de foi.
The simple act of our giving today helps put our Unitarian Universalist values into action across this vast country, bringing more love and justice into this world. Thank you, friends. And now back to Lynn in the studio.
Thank you, Calvin, and thank you all for your generosity to the Sharing Our Faith Fund this morning. Thanks especially to our speakers this morning, Terry, Julith, Gabrielle, and Moara. I hope that the interchange that has happened this morning will continue far beyond February, Black History Month, as we all continue to do the work of dismantling white supremacy culture and transforming ourselves so that systemic racism may be ended. Thank you so much for your generosity in speaking this morning. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "In a real sense, all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality." In coffee time today, I invite you to reflect on our interdependence in light of Black History Month and Sharing Our Faith Sunday. Now, as I invite you to extinguish your chalices, let's end with words from the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt. The truth is this: if there is no justice, there will be no peace. If we cannot bring justice into the small circles of our individual lives, we cannot hope to bring justice to the world. And if we do not bring justice to the world, none of us is safe and none will survive. Nothing that we do is more important than making justice real, here, where we are. Thanks for being here. See you soon.
Thank you all. In a moment, you'll be prompted to join discussion rooms for those deeper reflections on our interconnections. Newcomers, we have our newcomer information session. I'll post that Zoom in the chat, as well as the link for the CUC National Service at 1 p.m. Thanks for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you soon. Be well.